Well, we're getting closer. You can always feel the buzz around the course at the moment as the guys are now expecting racing to get underway. I'm glad I threw the commentator's curse at poor old Mark by suggesting that we were going to have a long wait, fluky wins, and suddenly the moment he started talking it began to fill in properly. We really can feel a breeze out here at the moment, which is great news, I say, for the huge spectator fleet as well that are here, as well as all our viewers on www.volvooceanrace.tv, and if you're listening to www.volvooceanrace.org, delighted you can listen, but remember you can get some TV pictures if you like by just changing from org to TV. And for all of those people listening to us out on the spectator boats, well, hopefully we won't be too long now until we have some racing. Mark?
Yeah, I can just confirm that that was the postponement. The AP is down, so we should have a 10-minute very soon.
Well, the one man who'll know more about that than anybody else, Canute, are you confident that we're going to get away?
Well, I think we're pretty confident. The breeze has started to settle down, and we have enough, I think, to be confident enough to send them off. I see that most of the boats are going for the jibs now. It's only Puma that is left with the Cruzeiro hoisted, but it's obviously much quicker to drop the Cruzeiro than to rehoist it, so they'll keep it up until they're absolutely confident. And all the sails have their head sails up now, except Puma, and there we just had the 10 minutes right there. So 10 minutes to the start of the first import race of the Volvo Ocean Race.
Well, 10 minutes to go then. We've been waiting an extra 10 minutes, but that happily is all we have had to wait. We're going to get underway at 20 past, 20 minutes behind schedule, but we are underway now in this very first act of the Volvo Ocean Race 2008-2009. The count is on for the first import race. Mark?
So we have a line that's set up here for a wind direction of 150. I can't see the course board from this side. Do you know the course, what they've set it up for?
The 150 course, right? 150 course. Yes, as far as I understand, the course is now set for a wind direction of 150.
Okay, so the line is set up for 150. Also, if we have the wind that they're anticipating, that they've set the course up for, will be a square line. It's about this, that the situation with it being such a short course, that the guys on starboard and to windward do have a lot of control of the fleet. There isn't really time to make any boat speed differences count. So if you can start at the boat at full speed on starboard, you're in pretty good shape, because you're going to be able to control when the whole fleet tacks. To that extent, you think a little bit of pin bias might be might help spread the fleet out a little bit along the line. So if we don't have that, I think we'll quite a lot of boats at the committee vote.
Well, we got an interesting development here, Mark, with Puma actually unfurling their Cruzeiro, which normally mean that they will be sailing with it. I'm not sure if they're doing this to check it out, but at least they have now their Cruzeiro fully unfurled and they're sailing with it, being the only team with that sail on. That's a very interesting development. And the wind has just dropped a little bit at this moment, so that could be a smart move. We'll see when we get closer.
Well, Puma, of course, had 3 best starts in the practice of the day, so we do know that as far as starting is concerned, Puma have got their act together pretty much so far for this import race. They look very slick indeed. I know they impressed you the other day, Mark, with their ability on the start line with Kenny Reid and the guys.
Yeah, they did a great job. They did 1 start at the committee boat, 1 start at the pin, and 1 start in the middle, and they nailed all 3 of them.
Yeah, and of course we've got plenty of classy Olympic sailors at the helm. Ian Walker with a couple of Olympic silver medals to his name, so you'll expect him to do pretty well off the start line as well. Pedro Campos, who was steering Telefonica Black in the practice race, again looked impressive. They went on to actually win that practice race. I know we can't read too much into that. They've taken great heart that performance as we just drop in and out slightly, but now I think we're back fully. Mark?
Yeah, we've just seen Puma tack that code 0. They're coming back down towards the line now, so they're just giving the tack a go to see how well it's working in those conditions.
Well, just a little report here. I'm just sitting watching Telefonica Black, who had to stop their boat and head up to the wind to get their jib over. And one thing we have seen this year is that the light, big-sized jibs have been made very wide in the top, and this is something of a development we saw in the America's Cup as well, with a very wide batten. And already this morning I've seen two teams struggling lately, Telefonica Black, with being able to tack the jib over because it gets stuck in the rig in the top. That's how wide it is. So that was an interesting observation.
Yeah, the Puma just sailed behind us. They've got Jerry Kirby on the bow, hooking up their headsail, so I think they've made a decision that they'll just go with the same to the fleet. That's a shame, really. It would have been interesting to see that. There's the 5-minute gun. It's only 5 minutes to go before the start of this first in-point race. Right now, we think we have a little bias towards the pin end, so maybe something like 10 degrees. That should spread the fleet out down the line a little bit, not giving so much advantage to this committee boat start.
Of course, just to fill in a couple of blanks perhaps on these boats for the import race, they're only allowed 10 sailors plus the media representative when they're offshore, but they are allowed 2 more sailors on board for the inshore race. Every boat has gone for weight in that department and have gone and raided the America's Cup as far as grinders is concerned to give them the power that they need. I remember one of the skippers in the press conference yesterday saying basically from the moment you get ready from the start till the moment you finish this race, you are grinding. So that is looking for extra power as far as this is concerned. Also interesting point made that TP52 is some way smaller, of course, in the Volvo 70. They have 15 guys to sail them, where you only have 12 to try and control these beasts out on the water in front of us this afternoon. I have to say that it is a magnificent sight. We're now in the middle of the fleet. We have Telefonica Blue just going past, Ericsson 3, the Nordic team, also very close by. Puma also in action, and Ericsson 4 floating by as well. So you do feel rather privileged when you're out here and you get such a remarkable view of these wonderful boats as they are preparing now for the race in less than 5 minutes to go. I'm going to be handing over to Mark in a minute who will talk you through the start of this import race. Canute, please feel free to give us your observations from your position, but I'm going to hand over now to the guys who really know what they're talking about ahead of this start. Mark Chisnell and Canute Frost.
Thank you, Guy. Yeah, we've got just under 3 minutes now till the start. We've got most of the fleet hanging out at the port end of the line. Just Delta Lloyd, Ericsson 3, and what's that? Telefonica Black, I think, at the committee boat. Everybody else down by the pin. Taking wind shots on the committee boat, checking that nothing dramatic has happened to their line or their setup before the start of this first race. They will want to get it away cleanly. And we are down now to about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, Mark, we have Puma and Green Dragon, Ericsson 4 and the Russian guys pretty close to us here on the pin side. The 3 first ones are all jibing right now and heading on port back towards the line. Obviously, no one wants to be the weather boat on starboard here. You want to get as close to the fleet as possible on a leeward position. But both the Ericsson 4 with Torben Grill at the helm and Kenny Reed are just following each other at the moment. Kenny is just on Torben's stern and heading back towards the line. And the Russians seem to be the boat that's going to go for the furthest position away from the line on the pin end side, with Stig Vestergaard driving, who is also known to be a very aggressive starter.
Yeah, they didn't have a great practice today, the Russians. The starts were looking a little weak, so they'll definitely be wanting to upgrade that today to get something a bit more positive to get off this line for this first race. So we have the Russians, Green Dragon, Puma and Ericsson 4, I think, all on port, heading back towards the committee boat. Hovering just under the committee boat is Ericsson 3, and then out to the right-hand side we have Telefonica Blue and Black and Delta Lloyd. Now all turning onto starboard, so the fleet basically converging. trying to pick their slot in this final section. We're just down around a minute. There's the 1 minute gun there, so we have just a minute to go before the start of this race. No one lining up too early here. We have Kenny and Torben in the middle of the line. Ericsson 4 just, yeah.
We have the Russians furthest away on the pin side. It's quite clear that Puma and Ericsson 4 are in for a battle. And Torben backed off, tacked back to port, and Kenny is setting up for the pin end as it looks now on starboard tack, with Ian Walker tacking just inside him. And that's going to be interesting to see if Ian is a little early to get to the pin end line, but he's just settling up for his final approach.
I'd say Puma looked pretty slow there after they were forced away on the starboard tack by Ericsson 4. So from the committee boat we have Delta Lloyd going right to left, looking upwind. Telefonica Black, Telefonica Blue, Ericsson 3, Puma, Green Dragon. On port tack we have Ericsson 4.
I can see all boats are clear behind the line, and it was Green Dragon that crossed the start line first, about half a boat length ahead of Puma and Ericsson 3. Puma is a little bit squeezed at the moment between Green Dragon and Ericsson 3, but I would say Green Dragon and Ian Walker really won this start on the pin side.
I'd agree with that. And the guys that were in trouble are Ericsson 4 and the Russians. The Russians now ducking the entire fleet on port, quite slow. Ericsson 4 just managed to sneak in at the committee boat, tacked onto starboard to get through the line, and are now really pinned by Delta Lloyd. And with the Russians crossing behind them, Torben's got no options to tack at all.
I'm here on
also slow there on that start line. That little fracas that the two boats had at the beginning, it's not done either of them any favours, and they're probably both in a little bit of trouble now.
No, I'm just the lure of Puma here, Mark, and they got away pretty nicely as Ian Walker went for a lot of boat speed and bore away a little bit after the start. So Puma has fresh air and is starting to squeeze up on the Ericsson 3, but the fast boat out here at the moment is Telefonica Blue. They're just sailing closer and closer to Ericsson 3, and I've really gained about the 1 boat length as I've been watching half a minute now.
Yeah, I think that Ericsson 3 are in trouble from where I'm standing, Knut. They look like they're just falling into the gas of Puma there. I think we can expect to see them bail out quite soon. We have Green Dragon. Green Dragon look like they're doing the same to Puma from here, Knut. I don't know how your angle is on that. And Ericsson 3 bailing out.
Green Dragon is really doing a big one on Puma. Puma is falling down behind Green Dragon, and Green Dragon have got a pretty good position there. But the two Telefonica boats are impressing me. They are clearly sailing fast and high, and at the moment they are, at least Telefonica Black and also Blue, have made some significant gain both in height and speed.
Yeah, they are the guys in the front row at the moment, and in the middle of the course, Telefonica Black and Blue. They're both on side. Telefonica Black just tacks as I said that. So now we have on port, we have Telefonica Black in the front row. In the second row also on port, we have Ericsson 4, Delta Lloyd and Ericsson 3, and the Russians. And still on starboard over on the left-hand side of the course, we have Telefonica Blue, Green Dragon and Puma. And probably the leading boat in that group. Green Dragon look like they're going quite nicely down there, Knut, if you're over on that side of the course.
Absolutely. I mean, from my position, the Russians are really pointing at the moment and are clearly sailing much higher, about 20 degrees higher than the boats on the left side when they're on their port. So they have a big lift shift on the right side of the course at the moment, and they look like they're pretty well powered up as well. What do you think, Mark?
No, I'd agree. They've got really good pressure. We're over on this side of the course, and we're just tracking behind Ericsson 4 here, and they're fully powered up. Actually, right now the start was looking like a winner. It looked pretty sad off the line, but it's the Russians on port tack, ducking everyone and getting out to this right-hand side. They're looking in pretty good shape now. So we have this whole group leading out to the right-hand side of the course. We have Russia, Ericsson 3, we have Delta Lloyd, Telefonica Black, and Ericsson 4, all on port headed out to the right, and the other group on the left-hand side, Green Dragon, Telefonica Blue, who are just bailing there now. They're tacking onto port, and Puma. We think we've got a big right shift here as well. So the guys, if this stays in, this group on the right-hand side are going to look pretty nice when they tack.
Mark, I agree with you, Mark. All the boats except Puma, who went left, have tacked over, and it's going to be interesting to see them meeting for the first time, because they've obviously split big time. But I would say that right with me, I'm just 20 meters to leeward of Telefonica Blue. They have really good pressure on that boat at the moment, so that's going to be an interesting meeting. I think they're looking pretty good.
What are you seeing on the pictures, Peter?
Well, I can just tell you, I can really confirm what you guys are reporting with the Russians out on the far right. They've just tacked, it looks like, here, heading for the gate, and they did look to be in a strong position. We'll see what happens when they get themselves back up to speed after the tack. Coming in from the other side, Telefonica Blue, Green Dragon, they're looking strong, and Telefonica Black is certainly bow forward in the middle of the race course. I don't know if that matches up with what you're seeing out there, guys.
Yeah, Peter, this is Knut here. I'm just on the stern of Telefonica Blue, and I tell you, they have good pressure on the left side and lifted breeze as well. So to me, they look like they're going to cross quite far ahead, both Telefonica Blue and Green Dragon. And the other boats on the right looks a bit lighter at the moment.
Yeah, the team that's really started to fall off the back a little bit here out on your side of the course, Knut, is Puma. They really seem to be dropping back.
Puma has been falling back, but they were also squeezed pretty hard before the tack. And I think the boat that really tacked in the right moment were the Telefonica Blue, because it seems like the minute extra Puma waited, the breeze dropped in that corner, and Telefonica Blue has just gone away with the pressure.
Well, it does look as if, is that signs that Russia were crossing behind Ericsson out there, Mark?
Yeah, Telefonica Black have just tacked on the Russians. So we've got those two headed for the gate on starboard now, converging with Telefonica Blue, and just off their stern we have Green Dragon. So this is the leading group of four right now. Second row are Puma, the two Ericsson boats, and Delta Lloyd. So converging on the gate, we're going to get our first snapshot here of who's ahead and who's behind. Kanita, you got the gate lined up where you are?
Yeah, it's a bit early to say, but I would say that the Telefonica Blue is starting to sail into a right shift, so it seems like it just might be getting it ahead as a crossing, but certainly Puma must have tacked too late, because they really missed the opportunity that the Telefonica Blue had. So the leading pack is definitely the two Telefonica boats, Green Dragon, and the Russians at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And they're all getting pretty close to the gate now. They are going to go through the gate, those four, in the next 30 seconds to a minute. And the guys that are in trouble here are Puma and the two Ericsson boats and Delta Lloyd. They're all very much second row right now. This front group of four is punched out, and right now these guys are going to be the ones sorting out the podium positions. But it's pretty flaky out here. You know, I think we've already seen some pretty impressive shifts and pretty impressive changes in pressure from one side to the other. And this is going to be a race that goes all the way to the end, I think.
Yeah, I've raced against a few of the Spanish sailors on Telefonica Blue, and I tell you, every time you have a fluky day in Barcelona or this area, these guys are really incredibly good with the wind shifts in these fluky conditions.
Yeah, and that is Telefonica Blue going through the gate in first place there. They've port tack headed out to the right, and I think they'll be adopting the strategy that we saw their teammates take on the practice day, which is just to minimize the tacks. As soon as you get any kind of leverage, any kind of lead, you just minimize your tacks. So you do two upwind.
Puma just had the... Sorry, Mark, but Puma just had to duck the stern of the Ericsson 4 there and had to veer away to clear them. So you could say that Puma and Ericsson 4 are crossing the gate pretty much at the same time.
That's right, and both boats paying the penalty for that little coming together in the pre-start, really, when they both ended up slow off the line, and that lack of speed, that lack of momentum has cost them all up to the gate here. They're both very much second row in this second division in this race now.
Guys, I'd just like to add in there, watching them go through the gate here on the animation, Telefonica Blue, the other boat that we really should give some kudos to, Ian Walker on Green Dragon. They look really strong here as well.
Yeah, I think they surprised us perhaps with how strong they looked in the practice race a couple of days ago. Also Team Russia, who appear to have gone through that gate in third place. We thought perhaps that there were problems on that practice race. In fact, it turned out to be a technical problem. Power unit had gone on the canting keel, and that went before the practice race started, which explained the bad starts that we saw then and the lack of boat handling. Interesting that Andreas Hanekamp yesterday said, yep, we got everything started. They made sure that they got the import specialist, the match racing specialist on the helm, and suddenly they are back in the mix. They are competitive and they're running in third place. But Telefonica Blue are storming away at the moment. This is a mightily impressive performance from them. Green Dragon second, Team Russia third. It does look now as if Puma have got themselves sorted out a bit and will be behind Telefonica Black, who are in fourth place. I guess what's disappointing so far, if you're an Ericsson fan, is their performance. I think everybody thought that Delta Lloyd would be running last as they finally get through the mark. This is the first time effectively that team has sailed together in anger. The fact that they're on the start line, we should congratulate, and they were only ever going to use today as a practice essentially, but they wanted to make sure they were here. They didn't lose points, and we're delighted to have them out here on the race course. But we're actually struggling as we go through the spectator fleet here on our commentary boat to catch up with Telefonica Blue and make sure that we're up at the mark when they are. Talking of marks, Mark Chisnell.
Yeah, Telefonica Blue in really good shape now, and Port headed out towards the starboard tack ley line for the top mark. They have a really comfortable lead of maybe a couple of 100 meters. They just look fast through the water, both these Telefonica boats. The Russians have actually had to put an extra tack in to get lined up on Port to get out to the starboard tack ley line, and that's cost them. Tacks are really expensive out here in this stuff, and I think they probably now, if they tack back to starboard, they couldn't cross the two boats out on their hip, Puma and Telefonica Black. So I'd say, like, right now we have the order Telefonica Blue, Green Dragon, Telefonica Black, Puma, probably then Russia. Then we have the two Ericsson boats out on the other side of the course, and Delta Lloyd. And I guess we've seen basically leaders come, or this front pack come from both sides of the course on this first half of this P before the gate. We could easily see it swing back the other way before we get to the top mark here.
Hey Mark, I'm just behind Puma, and there's some massive wind shifts at the moment. You have the Green Dragon pointing about 20-30 degrees higher on port than the Russians, and the Telefonica Blue guys just tacked back. I think looking behind and seeing that the Green Dragon is just have a massive left wind shift, which is going to be threatening almost for the Telefonica Blue guys.
Yeah, and it's going to be really, really difficult to get a precise ley line out here. These guys, because they're trying to minimize the tacks in these conditions, they'll want to tack, just do as few as possible and tack a long way from the mark. But that really exposes them to changes in both pressure and direction, and means that they could end up overstanding this mark or understanding it and having to put two extra tacks in. Either would be really, really painful. So lots of pressure on the navigators on these boats to try and pick this ley line.
Absolutely, I think
they're on starboard now. They'll be trying to round this mark on this starboard tack.
The Green Dragon guys.
Just the lead of Team Russia.
Yeah.
And there's Green Dragon just appearing, just ducking behind Telefonica Blue. So nothing in it now between Telefonica Blue and Green Dragon. Yeah. And Green Dragon will probably go up on their hip and put their tack in, and after that we'll just see who's got this ley line right. Telefonica Black and Puma, the next two boats to try and pick this ley line, along with Team Russia. And then we have the random factor over the other side of the course here, the two Ericsson boats, and Delta Lloyd really just slipping further and further back. The lack of preparation time on that boat now starting to show, perhaps. They haven't been out much on the water here this week. They've probably had no real chance to get a feel for these conditions. The rest of these guys did a practice race on Thursday. Puma actually did a practice lap a few days before that. So they've been out all week, the rest of just getting used to these conditions. So we now have Green Dragon on starboard as well, up on the hip of Telefonica Blue, and Right now, I'd say Telefonica Blue are going to struggle to lay that mark, Canute. Pete, do you have any feel for that on the computers?
Yeah, Mark, I'm watching it on the animation, and I am really thinking that they're going to be hard pushed to get around that mark. Green Dragon seems to have hit the ley line nicely. I'm also watching Ericsson 4 coming in. They look like they were dead and buried a couple of minutes ago, but they really seem to be storming in. Is that what you're seeing out there, guys?
Yeah, I'm just lured of Ericsson 4, and they're certainly made a big gain by this pressure that seems to have filled in from the left and really given them a massive gain. I mean, look at the Russian guys, they are now clearly behind and even behind Ericsson 4. So that was the massive comeback from Torben Grill, who is known to smell the wind shifts from anywhere. So the interesting thing is going to be see if the Telefonica Blue guys can make it. From my position, it looks like they might just make it, but I don't know if you can see it differently.
Well, we've got a nice helicopter shot here, guys, and it looks like they will be able to shoot that mark. But, Mark, what about Ericsson 4 coming in here on port tack?
Ericsson 4 is just in front of me here, and I would see that Ericsson 4 is not far from Puma, so that's going to be an interesting match.
Okay, we talked a little bit in our debrief after the practice race about a dead zone for commentary up near that mark, and I think perhaps Guy and Mark, you've fallen into that because we're getting you breaking up a little bit. So, Canute, I think it's you and I for a couple of minutes until we get that boat in a different position.
Ericsson 4 just went behind Telefonica Black, and they're tacking in front of Puma, I would assume, just now. So Ericsson 4 made a big comeback. They're now in fourth position, just tacking around, and the Telefonica Blue got their light spinnaker up, and the Green Dragon is just rounding, hoisting their chute. And the breeze actually just went very, very light, so very unfortunate for the Russians, who went all the way to the right and missed that opportunity with the pressure filling in from the left. The two Telefonica Blues are looking pretty pressured up in these light conditions. We got a Green Dragon chute flying, and the Telefonica Black just rounding and hoisting their light spinnaker. And the fourth boat will be Ericsson, fifth will be Puma, and then the Ericsson 3 guys might also have made some distance back on the Russian guys. I think those two boats will end up being pretty close.
Thanks, Canute. We're seeing the boats go around in order: Telefonica Blue, Green Dragon, Telefonica Black, Ericsson 4, and Puma around. Ericsson 3 will be following them, and then it looks like Team Russia and Delta Lloyd a long ways back, not quite at the mark yet, but just on board with Ericsson as they go around. Here comes Puma, just rounding the mark now. We're on board with them if you're watching VolvoOceanRace.tv or perhaps streaming it on your mobile phone. You can see these pictures there as well, and you can see how hard the guys on board are grinding, getting that big kite up as they try and get the jib down, the head sail down, the big kite up. And Kenny Reed, we've just seen him jump across the screen from the leeward to the windward wheel as Puma Ocean Racing settles on there in fifth place around the mark. They've got Ericsson 3 behind them, Team Russia as well. I think it's going to be Team Russia rounding next. Is that what you're seeing out there, Canute?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, Team Russia is clearly ahead. Ericsson is very slow and losing a bit of power at the moment on Ericsson 3, but they're getting there. But the interesting thing is that the Team Russia just unfurled the Code Zero, which is an unusual sail to use in this wind strength downwind. So that's an interesting maneuver. I'm not exactly sure what they're thinking there. Maybe they're expecting a massive wind shift to the left, but that would be the only reason to hoist such a sail right now.
Well, we've got some great images of the guys on deck on board Team Russia as they're really struggling to get that head sail down. They're trying to flake it on the foredeck, but it's a massive amount of sail area. Really hard work. The rest of the guys grinding in to get that Code Zero in. And we can also see on the back Team Russia is carrying an extra cameraman and reporter as they've got Olympic medalist Shirley Robertson on board with them, reporting for a sailing program as well. So they've got a couple extra people on board there. I'm just going to throw it back out to Guy and Mark and see whether we can reach you guys. We'll give you a second or two to come in, and if not, Canute and I will carry on. Green Dragon. Okay, well, it looks like we are still struggling to reach the guys out on the commentary boat. There's an awful lot of boats on the race course there, and their transmission probably just a little bit too far away when they get up to that top mark. Yep. Canute, downwind, they're getting the leaders. They're about halfway down to that gate now.
They are. I mean, the Green Dragon have just jibed and our first board onto port jibe. As we know, they have to sail through the gate in the middle, which is a new feature in this race, which is going to give them some extra maneuvers and keep the fleet closer to the center. It's very interesting in the back of the fleet with the Russians having this special called zero-like sail, which is going to make them sail a tighter angle and obviously not as low as the other guys. So I'm wondering why they're doing it, but there have been talks about this special sail for a while, that Russian has something the others don't have, and let's see what happens on this downwind with them. They're certainly a bit behind the rest of the pack at the moment.
Okay, let's try and bring in Guy and Mark again. I think I heard Guy testing his microphone there a moment ago. Guy, are you with us?
Hey, Peter, I'm just looking at the leaders. Telefonica Blue had a massive wind shift to the left in the front here, and or are they bearing away for jibe? Yeah, they're just bearing away for jibe now. So they were just sailing low for a while, and now we have both Telefonica Blue and the Green Dragon on port jibe, and the rest of the fleet still approaching the lee line before the gate on starboard.
Well, we can see Green Dragon, Telefonica Blue. They're going to be taking. They're going to be taking opposite sides on this gate. Green Dragon, they're on the right-hand side when you're looking up the race course. Telefonica Blue, they would be on the left, looking up the race course. And in between them, it looks like Telefonica Black is just about to throw in a jibe there. But most of the fleet staying out. After rounding that mark, just doing the one jibe through to the gate. Is that what you see, Canute?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like both Telefonica boats and Ericsson 4 that just jibing now went for the corner on the left-hand side when you look up the course. So you have now both Telefonica Blue Black and Ericsson 4 on port jibe approaching the gate. And Green Dragon has really gone for the other side of the gate all by themselves. So that's going to be interesting to see with the pressure, remembering what we had on the first upwind with the pressure filling in from the left very strongly in the last part of that upwind. I think it could be a risky move to go to that side as Green Dragon is doing.
Okay,
Peter, I think we're back. If you need anything from Mark and I, we're back in range again. We're through our dead spot. We were going to give you some deltas, but we've virtually finished the next run, so we can give them if you like.
Yeah. Why don't you throw those into us? It's good to have you back, and maybe when you're advising your media boat driver, just don't go quite that far up towards that mark on the second lap of the course.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. We don't seem to be that far from land. It's just that little dead spot. But anyway, just to let you know, Telefonica Blue, of course, leading. The deltas, Green Dragon, 31 seconds. Telefonica Black, 24 seconds further back. Then we've got Torben Grail on Ericsson 4, 28 seconds. Puma, 13 seconds. Team Russia, a further 66 seconds behind, 1 minute and 6 seconds. Then Anders Luanda on Ericsson 3, 20 seconds. And then Delta Lloyd, 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Those are the deltas. Back to you, Mark.
Yeah, I have a theory about the dead spot. I think it's as we turn the boat to get a better view of the mark, the Spanish commentary team gathers around our antenna. That's my theory. We're going to test it on the next one, see if that works. But certainly they've walked away from it now, and all of a sudden we're back on. So we have Green Dragon first through the gate, followed by Telefonica Blue, and then Telefonica Black. Behind them, Puma. Everybody's on starboard except for Delta Lloyd, who are some distance behind. We've basically got everybody on port, sorry. Green Dragon, Telefonica Blue, Telefonica Black, Puma, Ericsson 4, Ericsson 3, and right up the back there, the Russians. How do you think that sail's going for them, Canoe? It doesn't look like it's going too well from here.
No, I don't really think so. I mean, they obviously already lost quite a bit to Ericsson 3, and you see they really have to keep a tighter angle. One thing that everyone have to remember is that these teams are only allowed to measure in a number of sails, and they have to use these sails around the world, which means that some of these teams might have gone conservative and made sails that are more ideal for the offshore legs and compromised a bit in this wind range on the import. I also see a big difference on the spinnakers. The Ericsson 4 spinnaker just in front of me is certainly with a tighter luff, more reaching oriented than some of the other spinnakers. But right now Puma caught some good pressure and managed to soak and sail a bit lower. And it seems like they've been catching up a little bit on Ericsson again, but that's going to be a tight race. But certainly Ericsson 3 has definitely passed the Russian boat and will be crossing the gate clear ahead of them.
Yeah, we've got Green Dragon over on this side of the course, just jibed to starboard, inside jibing, pulling the clear of the sail round inside the tack. And they now look like they have a pretty good ley line on starboard down through the gate. There's a gate at the bottom of this course, so they can choose to round either end, just as they were if you were watching America's Cup racing last year. So we've got a close cross coming up here for the lead between Green Dragon coming in on starboard. Right, laying the gate on port, we have Telefonica Blue. The other thing about these sails is one of the interesting statistics is that the first, I think it's 75% of the miles are done by Rio, but that's only 55% of the points. So if you're dividing your sail inventory up, this first set, the sails that the guys are using here today, have got to get all the way to Rio if you're expecting this sail inventory to get you the first half of the course. Telefonica Blue jibing to starboard there, just on top of there, trying to get on the top of Green Dragon's gas. They obviously think that I'd say Telefonica Blue aren't going to lay from there, actually. I think they've probably done that. They're jibed to starboard. They're going to have to do one more jibe to get through on the gate, but they've made an attempt to get on the air of Green Dragon. I've got a feeling that's just going to give the Green Dragon guys a lead through this gate, Canoe. What do you think from where you are?
It looks like to me like the Green Dragon had a really good line of breeze coming on starboard, and for almost a whole minute the Telefonica Blue was really stuck in very light wind and jibed as late as they could to get some of the breeze that the Green Dragon came flying down with. But certainly to me it looks from here that the Green Dragon made a good gain on the last part of that downwind.
Yeah, I can see Green Dragon spinnaker looking at the flaky, so they may be getting some gas now from Telefonica Blue. Both boats on starboard approaching the gate, and with the pressure dropping, I don't think either of them are laying the gate right now. They can't sail as deep on these boats when the breeze goes down, and we've got a little light spot around this gate at the bottom of the course, and both these guys are struggling to lay. Crossing their stern on port, we have Telefonica Black, and followed by Puma to windward of her, and then Ericsson 4 to windward of her and ahead. So this third group of three will be fighting it out for the third place on the podium. Okay, we have some action at the bottom here.
Yeah, it's interesting now is that the two boats can choose which mark at the bottom they want to round. So that's got to be an interesting tactical move here now, because it could be a situation where Telefonica Blue will go for the mark which is to the right of them, while Ian might jibe. But knowing that the pressure has quite often filled in from the left side, we will see how they make their decision for the upwind.
I think Telefonica Black's going to make good gains on both these other two boats. They're both Green Dragon and Telefonica Blue are trying to get round this mark without another jibe. They're pointing very long way downwind, very square, and they're both very, very slow coming into the gate. Telefonica Black's got a much better ley line. She's approaching the gate with pace, hoisting her headsail now. Spinnaker's going down on both Telefonica Blue and Green Dragon, both on starboard, rounding the left-hand mark, looking upwind, rounding it on starboard, so it's a lure drop on both boats. Sails coming in under the headsail, and
Yeah.
right on this.
We have a very tight position here. I'm just at the mark where Telefonica Blue is just about rounding, and you will have Green Dragon a few seconds behind them. They both lost a lot of distance to Telefonica Black by sitting side by side and trying to work themselves down. Yeah, looking at the mark rounding, Telefonica Blue came out well, but the Green Dragon has managed to squeeze up and get a little weather position, but although behind. And the Green Dragon cannot live in this position for very long, so they will be forced to tack over to port very soon. That will be expectation.
And not rounding that mark as well, rounding the left-hand mark, looking upwind, Telefonica Black. She's going to be right on Green Dragon's stern, maybe only 3 or 4 lengths behind them. Green Dragon bailing there onto port. So they're now on port, leaving the 2 Telefonica boats on starboard. Blue leading port out to the left-hand side of the course. Also making a game, we've got Ericsson 4 and Puma approaching the gate now. Headsels up on both boats. There goes the attack of the Spinnaker on Ericsson. So they're about to drop. Everybody seems to be going for this left-hand mark looking upwind. I think that's probably what you're saying, Knut, about the pressure coming in from the left more than it's coming in from the right.
Yeah, we have the 2 Telefonica boats certainly setting out to the left, and I saw the Telefonica Blue team just easing off as soon as they got rid of the Green Dragon and really going for speed out towards the left side. These guys are known in these waters, and I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing, speeding along out to the left-hand side of the course to pick up some breeze on that side.
Yeah, Green Dragon had no choice there. They really had to bail. They couldn't sit on the hip of the Telefonica boat. But if you're Ian Walker, you wouldn't be too happy now going the opposite direction to the 2 local boats on their home orders where they've been training in these boats for several months.
Oh, I think we have a similar situation with the Puma and Ericsson 4. Puma is now sitting in a very tricky position just to lure them in the shadow of Ericsson 4. And if they want to live there, they have to really go for speed to get forward. But I think Ken Reed is just now deciding to tack, and there he's tacking over to get fresh air and clean off Ericsson 4. Both Puma boats have tacked over to port now and are looking pretty good. But I would say that Ericsson 4 has done really well in the last couple of minutes and certainly made a gain also on Telefonica Black. Had a good rounding with good speed, and that looks looking good from here.
Yeah, they had a nice drop. They had a really nice drop on the Ericsson 4, and Puma's problem was I think they got a little bit too far to leeward of the mark, and that's put them into 4th place with the Ericsson, the other Ericsson boat also now coming right in behind them. In 6th, we've just got coming through the gate here, 7th, we have the Russian boat Delta Lloyd, still a long way back up the course in last, just about coming through the gate now. So looking upwind, we have 2 Ericsson boats on starboard, still heading out to the left. On port, we have Telefonica Blue, Telefonica Black, and Puma in that order, left to right, windward to leeward, all heading back across to the right-hand side. Ahead of them, remember, very close second around the mark, we had Green Dragon, and she's also on port, heading up towards the gate. I think the 2 Telefonica boats will save a tack here, though. They're probably both going to get through this gate on this tack. Maybe not Telefonica Black, actually, but anybody that gets through this gate on one tack saves a tack, gets out to that starboard tack ley line, and will just increase their lead.
Yeah, Mark, I can confirm on the race viewer, and you can check in on that race viewer on volvooceanrace.org on the home page. There's a link to it, but you can see Green Dragon. They will need another tack, but it looks like, to my eye on the race viewer anyways, they've maybe extended a little bit on Telefonica Blue. Is that what it looks like on the race course?
Yeah, Peter, I'm here on the left side of the course at the moment, and I can agree with you. I think Telefonica Blue seem to pick the right moment for the tacks every time, and they look pretty good, but certainly it looks to me that Telefonica Blue will make the gate, and Telefonica Black might make it. With the pointing and the course they have right now, they should make it.
We've got the deltas certainly for the first 5 boats through as well down here now. First boat through, of course, was Telefonica Blue. The big gainers, though, Green Dragon, 9 seconds behind. They took 22 seconds out of Telefonica Blue going downwind. In 3rd place, Telefonica Black, 34 seconds further back. That's 10 seconds up so an extension of 10 seconds on the gap between them and Green Dragon. In fourth place, Torben Grail, 36 seconds further back, 8 seconds further back than he was on the last run. In fifth place, Ken Reed, 17 seconds behind Ericsson 4. That's an additional 4 seconds behind. And in fifth place, Ericsson 3, 34 seconds further back. That's an increase of 14. Team Russia, 57 seconds further back. And we might not give you every one of Delta Lloyd's deltas because they're still some way from that bottom mark.
Well, Guy, talk about the curse of the commentator. As we were speaking, Canute, Telefonica Blue just seemed to really lift in an effort to make it through that gate, and there's a big cross coming up here, guys.
Yeah, Telefonica Blue on port, trying to cross Green Dragon on starboard. If Telefonica Blue get across, which I think they have, yeah, they're clear through there now. They're across in front of Green Dragon. They are just about to go through the gate, and they have saved the extra tack, and they're headed out for that starboard tack ley line and the windward mark. Both Telefonica Black and Green Dragon have had to tack onto starboard. They're crossing through the gate on starboard. Puma, we're out here just to leeward of her now. She's on port. She'll be lining the gate up any second, tacking to starboard to go through it on starboard. And coming in from the other side of the course, we have the 2 Ericsson boats, Ericsson 4 leading Ericsson 3. From where I am, Ericsson 4 is still looking in pretty good shape. I don't think, well, no, she's a fair way behind, I suspect, on Telefonica Black on the cross. Puma just tacking there. She's lined up the right-hand side of the gate looking upwind on starboard tack.
Thanks, Mark. We've got Telefonica Blue on their own. They're heading out towards the right-hand side of the race course, really extending away now. And certainly on the race viewer, it's up to getting close to 200-meter advantage over Green Dragon. And that's really an indication of how costly that extra tack was for the Irish-Chinese team as they're heading out to the left-hand side of the course. It looks like from here, Mark, is there any reason why Telefonica Blue wouldn't just go straight out to ley line now?
Not really. That's saving the tacks has been the strategy. Saving the tacks and the jibes. The guys all came down the run the same way with the minimum number of jibes. I'm sure they'd all like to do the minimum number of tacks going upwind, but the only guy that can pick that is the leader, and she's the one that's doing it. The only way the others might get into this is just if we get another puff of pressure from the left-hand side. We saw how well Ericsson 4 came back into the game at the top of the beat last time with that pressure from the left-hand side. And, in this situation, in a normal yacht race, we've got Telefonica headed out to the right, the 2 closest boats to her headed out to the left, and that would make you pretty nervous. There's quite a bit of leverage opening up, and if you're in any other kind of boat than one of these or a catamaran, you'd be tacking to close that leverage down if you were Telefonica Blue, and just to keep the gap reasonably small. But saving the tacks is so important. They've just about got to let that leverage open. They've got to expose themselves to the risk of a shift from the left-hand side. Now, from my point of view, that makes it more interesting. From their point of view, it just makes it that much more stressful.
Well, Mark, I'm just here at the gate, Mark, and looking around, the breeze has certainly dropped for all the boats at the moment. So if I was Telefonica Blue, I would be nervous, because the other times this has happened, the breeze has filled in from the left. And looking at Telefonica Black, they're really looking low on starboard tack, which should normally indicate that they're looking for a left-hand shift. And there we have Telefonica Black tacking, which I think is something they did because the breeze actually did head left on the left-hand side, although it did also drop at the same time, which will make them look like they're low. But the next crossing of these boats could be very interesting because they're now gone pretty extreme, left and right, with the fleet splitting in 2 of the top 4 boats.
Well, the other one to watch on that, I think, Canute, certainly on the race viewer, is Ericsson 4.
Absolutely, Peter. We're out on the water, and Ericsson 4, Torben Grail, really looks as if he's picked the perfect line and the perfect breeze while the others are struggling. Back to you.
Well, that's. I was just going to echo that. They're certainly up to second place on the race viewer as the boat's out on the extreme left-hand side, that port tack ley line to the top mark. They've all just put in that tack. They're going to be storming into that ley line. And Telefonica Blue and Ericsson, well, I think they're going to establish themselves on starboard tack up there and probably have quite a nice approach to the mark. The other boat that seems to be really having a tough slog of it right now, guys, is Puma. They just through the gate a moment or two ago but well back of this top group.
Sure, I think that's probably the surprise when we saw how well they sailed in the practice race. And I was going to ask both Knut and Mark this. Of course, we're looking further ahead than just this import race. We're looking at the Volvo Ocean Race as a whole. And what have you made of upwind and downwind speed in the little sailing that we've seen so far? Knut?
Well, one of my conclusions is that the two Telefonica boats and Green Dragon are looking slippery and fast in the light stuff. And remember 2 days ago when we had a practice race and Puma was looking strong, it was certainly more pressure and more wind. So it could be that Puma is a little bit sticky in the light stuff and need a bit more pressure to really get going. But just lately the breeze has started filling in right in front of me, and the boats are certainly more powered up. And if you look at Telefonica Black and Green Dragon, they are now just getting a new breeze and starting to heel over and get powered up. I don't know how it looks on the other side. Maybe you can see that better from your point, Mark.
Yeah, Telefonica Blue looks fine. She's tagged now onto starboard. She's coming into the wind with Mark on starboard tack on the ley line. They would have tried to pick that pretty nicely. There's good pressure over this side of the course. They look more pressured up than they were before on Telefonica Black and Green Dragon. They're also very close to each other, those two guys, so there'll be a little bit of needle there that we'll want to see how they line up. And from where we are, it may just be the changing angle, but it looks like Telefonica Black has got the better of that lineup. Pete, can you see anything there on the viewer?
Yeah, it's really very close. Telefonica Black and Green Dragon, the advantage line just keeps switching between the two of them. Ericsson 4 is the one that I've really got my eye on, and they really seem, their heading on the race viewer is oscillating quite dramatically. I think it's probably more pressure than direction, but it looks like they're going to be well positioned to round this mark, potentially in second place, unless either of those two boats coming in on port tack is just able to slam a tack in underneath them as they go around the mark. But barring that, I think Ericsson 4 is looking pretty good here.
Yeah, certainly. We've got a pretty big cross coming up here when Ericsson 4 gets onto starboard tack and she converges with Telefonica Black and the Green Dragon. Certainly coming back to the boat speed question, I think the Telefonica boats and the Green Dragon all look pretty good, as do Ericsson. The most powerful looking boat in design terms is probably the Russian boat, and they're the guys that are struggling here. They've just dropped slowly off the back of the fleet. I don't know if they've got problems with their keel again, but certainly they've just not got the pace today in these conditions. So we've got Telefonica Blue approaching the wind with Mark. We're about to get around her, and she'll be on the last leg down towards the finish on this two-lapper at the first import race of the Volvo Ocean Race.
Well, we've got Telefonica Blue here, guys, just about to go around that top mark. They called the ley line well. They gave themselves a little bit of a comfortable margin there going around. The sheets go out, the spinnaker goes up, and really nice crew work on that. You can see in the back of the boat, if you're watching this on VolvoOceanRace.tv, we have an awful lot of guys turning handles in the back of the boat trying to get that sail up. Really an awful lot of work to be done to get these boats around the course. The big cross is coming up here, though, Mark. If you're still with us and we can hear you, you can probably call that Ericsson 4 with Telefonica Black.
Yeah, Telefonica Ericsson 4 on starboard and Telefonica 4 just tacking into leeward of her. And if they can lay from there, I would say Telefonica Black are going to lead round this mark. But we still got Green Dragon. Ian Walker will have to slot it in there pretty tightly. The umpires will be watching this one for sure. Telefonica Black is right down on the ley line. They're only just making the mark. No, Green Dragon is ducking. Green Dragon has decided to take the low-risk option. Telefonica Black had not left any space in there between the mark. So Green Dragon ducking Telefonica Black. She'll roll into attack right on the stern of Ericsson 4. So Telefonica Black is going to lead around this mark. Ericsson 4 next, followed by the Green Dragon. And we've just been looking back at the tracks up this speed. And really this all comes down to the extra two tacks that Green Dragon and Telefonica Black have done up this beat. Ericsson 4 has just done the two tacks. The other guys have done a couple of extras, and that's the split. That's what's got Torben Grail back into this group.
Yeah, just looking for me, I'm just to leeward of the top mark, and Ericsson 4 came into that mark with a lot more speed than Telefonica Black did. So you will see that Ericsson 4 will catch up immediately, and now they need to fill the chutes as quick as possible, which they both did pretty well. But Ericsson 4 suddenly came up right up behind Telefonica Black, and Green Dragon obviously lost a bit there. But I think we have a real race on for the second place there. That could be any one of Black and Ericsson, and it's going to be hard for those two to fight, and maybe having to leave Green Dragon alone on the way down towards the gate.
Well, guys,
we just got the
about
deltas on the first three boats through, really extending their lead. Telefonica Blue, 78 seconds between them and a minute and 18 seconds. Then 16 seconds further back are Ericsson, who are up to third place. 8 seconds just behind Telefonica Black, and a further
okay, Guy, I think you've fallen into that dead zone again. We're just having you break up, and now we've lost you altogether there. So, Knut, as we have Ericsson going around the mark now, I think it's just you and me again as they start to head downwind. How did, Knut, maybe you can just come in and talk a little bit about Telefonica Blue, Bauer Becking, Iker Martinez. They're off to the races. I mean, they have extended now over 500 meters ahead of the second place boat.
Yeah, they have an amazing speed. I mean, they've been really fast, and then it seems like they've been hitting the shifts right each time and been with the pressure spin each time. And if they haven't, they have taken a short bite into the others and recovered. So it's an impressive boat spin on that boat, clearly.
Well, Telefonica Blue is the boat we're talking about. They're your race leader.
Yeah, that was Telefonica Blue I was talking about, certainly.
Yeah, and we'll expect to see them roll into a jibe here shortly as they approach the gate for the last time on their way down towards the finishing line. Still coming upwind, well, that's Delta Lloyd. They still have to go through that gate on their second upwind leg. We shouldn't feel too hard done by on the guys on Delta Lloyd, though. It's a fantastic effort that they're just out here at all today. And I think Guy mentioned earlier this will be a real run through, one of their first times sailing this boat in a racing configuration. So a little bit of consideration given there. On board with Puma Ocean Racing now, if you're watching on .tv, as their foredeck crew wrestling that enormous Genoa down onto the deck, as Puma Ocean Racing around the mark now, 6th place, and quite a long ways back of the race leader. But they'll have their sights on Ericsson 3, some 200 or 300 meters ahead. That's who they're going to be looking on, trying to reel them in on this final run down to the finish. Telefonica Blue has jibed, but Knut, I imagine you're with that big group of boats battling for third place, and maybe a bit of a surprise, Green Dragon has jibed out of there early.
Yeah, they jibed early, and I'm just between Green Dragon and Ericsson 3, and I can tell you the breeze has really dropped behind in the fleet here. Ericsson 3 has very, very little pressure, and they're really struggling to get the boat going. So I think Green Dragon probably jibed to get out of that wind hole, because it seems there's a kind of a patch just around this area with very little wind. So they jibed out, and you have to remember the last downwind, Green Dragon made a significant comeback coming from the other side of the racecourse.
Well, we'll see if they're able to do that again. They're certainly on their own.
Peter, are you back with us?
And also, we have to remember that the two Telefonica and Ericsson 4 stuck together very close. Green Dragon certainly has a lot to gain by taking a little risk here and splitting with them, because if they get right, they will jump 2 places.
Just to say that out on this side of the course, got an interesting sight as Telefonica Blue goes through the gate midway down the course, and poor old Delta Lloyd are beating upwind. So almost effectively a lap ahead, Telefonica Blue, of Delta Lloyd in 8th place. A quick run through those last two deltas for you. Green Dragon had dropped down to 4th place, 16 seconds behind Torben Grail and Ericsson 4. 72 seconds further back was Ericsson 3, and the big loser on that leg was Puma, dropping a place down to 6th and 64 seconds behind named Ericsson 3.
Hey Guy, this is Knut here. Just an interesting observation is that the distance between Telefonica Black and Ericsson 4 has grown. So Telefonica Black has made gains on Ericsson, and which again points towards that this Telefonica boat seems to be very fast and slippery in the light stuff when the wind drops.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Knut. It's interesting because these are the two boats without the jumpers. They've got the lighter rigs. They don't look like they're set up to try and take the code zeros anywhere near upwind in comparison to the rest of the fleet. And they, the boats are set up, they're geared up a little bit more to. You're going to make it a 1-2 here. Telefonica Black just slipping away the leeward of Ericsson. Green Dragon have put that extra jibe in. They had to jibe back again to get through the gate. And I think that's just consolidated their fourth place rather than giving them any advantage. I mean, we've seen it's difficult for anybody to do any different. They've almost got to just get what they, deal with what they're handed in the way of pressure, lanes and shifts, because as we've seen, anybody who's tried anything different, an extra tack or an extra jibe so far has pretty much just made a loss.
Absolutely. It doesn't look like the Green Dragon had a big gain out there. They sort of in a similar place, but what's going to be interesting now is when the Green Dragon guys are crossing behind Ericsson 4, and if the Ericsson 4 and the Telefonica continues on the left, it creates a new opportunity for Green Dragon to catch up. But now the Ericsson 4 is jibing just in front of Green Dragon, and that's going to be interesting. That could mean that the Green Dragon has made a gain on Ericsson 4.
Yeah, interesting out on the course, but we know the team that is going to be happiest at the end of this first import race of the two scheduled for this afternoon, and that is Telefonica in their home waters. It looks as if it's going to be certain a 1-2. Knut, you're out in that battle between Ericsson 4 and Green Dragon.
Yeah, what a very interesting thing happened was that Ericsson 4 jibed just in front of Green Dragon, and Green Dragon decided to jibe right away and had a very poor jibe. They lost a lot of speed in that jibe, Green Dragon, but they certainly split. So we have an interesting development. Those two boats were pretty close, so Green Dragon did make a gain on Ericsson 4 on the downwind, and the question is not now going to be who's going to have the best approach to the finish. Obviously, they're going to come from the opposite sides.
That's the real battle left out on the course, if you like. Everything else is pretty much decided. Telefonica Blue are almost at the finishing line now. A superb performance as far as they are concerned. Ike Martinez, the co-skipper, was in charge of proceedings today. Simon Fisher, the navigator, will be delighted with the way things have gone. Telefonica Black comfortable now in second place to make this a 1-2 in home waters for the team Telefonica. The big battle for third place between Green Dragon and Torben Grail on Ericsson 4. The battle of the two Olympians, 6 medals against 2. Ian Walker against Torben Grail. It looks as though Ericsson 3 are very comfortable indeed in 5th place. Puma 6, Team Russia 7th, and I think that's something they're going to have to ask. Mark touched on it. They started looking very competitive, but do appear to have run into problems, and it'll be interesting to see if that keel has gone again. Motor problem that they have. Delta Lloyd in 8th.
Well, Ericsson 4 jibed, and we are just behind Ericsson 4, so they are now approaching the finish on port jibe. It's very difficult to see from my position. You probably have to look at the graphic display on the race viewer to see who is ahead of the advantage line of Ericsson 4 and Green Dragon. But Ericsson 4 is looking fairly light out here. It doesn't look like they have a lot of breeze at the moment.
Yeah, we have good pressure out here with Green Dragon on port. How does it look on the race viewer, Pete? Yeah,
well, as you guys have both noted, Green Dragon is looking a little bit better on the race viewer. Maybe up by about 50, 75 meters, and you can see after Ericsson 4 goes into that jibe how soft it is just based on their heading. But of course, Green Dragon has at least one more jibe left to get to the finishing line. More importantly, down at that finishing line, Guy.
Exactly what we're going to try and break in, because we've actually missed the fact that Telefonica Blue have won this race in the 2008 2009 Volvo Ocean Race. They've led from start to finish. It's been a magnificent performance. There have been terrific battles going on behind them. Only really Green Dragon got close at one stage within just 8 seconds of them, but then they got smoked in the upwind beat. And Telefonica Blue ensured that they wrapped up a very comfortable victory. Equally comfortable now in second place, Telefonica Black. We have our Spanish commentary team on board as well, so you can imagine what the celebrations are like aboard the boat at the moment. So those of you who fancy listening in Spanish, go to volvooceanrace.es and hear the celebrations then. But Telefonica Black heading in for second place, but I think we need now to concentrate on that battle for third between Torben Grail and Ian Walker, and Ericsson 4 and Green Dragon.
Right now, from where we are, it looks like Ericsson 4 have the better of it, actually. But it's going to be pretty close, I think. Telefonica Black just coming down through the line now. They're definitely going to get the second place. Ian Walker will not be particularly happy, I suspected. The cost of that tack, they got really close to the leader and had to tack, almost too close, had to tack away at that lured mark at the start of the second beat, and it's cost them heavily, pushed them back to 4th. Same thing with Puma, really. They were the other boat that had to tack away, and they're now back in 6th place. So we're just watching both these boats closing, converging quite fast, maybe only 15-20 seconds apart now. Green Dragon have got their final jibe in. They're laying the line comfortably, and actually, contrary to my earlier call, it's Green Dragon that's going to get it. Green Dragon clear ahead now and with nice pressure. Nice lane of breeze taking them down to the finish line. Green Dragon clear ahead of Ericsson 4. They are maybe 20 seconds away from a third place and the final podium place in this first race of the Volvo Ocean Race.
Well, if you've been following us on VolvoOceanRace.tv, we have experienced a few camera issues, which is why we weren't able to bring you pictures of the finish with Telefonica Blue and Black. We're on Green Dragon now, and Mark, as you said, they are just ahead of Ericsson 3 as they approach or Ericsson 4, I should say, as they approach the finishing line. And Green Dragon with a top 3 finish here, just going across the line now.
Yeah, I'm afraid I stole the microphone from poor Mark just as he was about to respond, Peter. Yeah, great, excellent performance by Green Dragon. Yes, I'll be disappointed that they got knocked out of that second spot, but what's impressed me is their performance in the downwind conditions. They took an awful lot out on one run from Telefonica Blue. They've just again really romp past Ericsson 4, and that's going to put them in pretty good stead, Mark and Canute.
Absolutely. I think the 3 first boats show some extraordinary downwind performance, and I guess from our boat here, both myself and Jack Lloyd, we concluded that the Telefonica boats managed to point lower than the other boats on all the downwind legs and gain what we call a VMG advantage, so they get closer to the mark all the time.
And that may be something about the decisions they've made for the sails they've got. You know, they've got the 3 choices on the masthead sails, and they may have got a slightly better light air runner than the other guys because they're not trying to take that other sail closer upwind because of the difference in the mast configuration. So these are all things we're going to learn as these guys go around the world and they do these import races, and then we see them go offshore and see what sort of sail selection speeds they've got offshore. So we've just got Ericsson 4 through the line there in 4th.
And we have Ericsson
3 just about to come through behind it.
Well, I also believe the Ericsson 3 guys actually gained a bit on the last round on Ericsson 4. They're sort of been catching up slowly, and we're certainly closer to the leading pack compared to Puma.
No, I'd agree with that. And Ericsson 3 going through the line there in 5th place. So a lot of it is just about the pressure that you get handed, the pressure and the shifts that you get handed. We saw Ian Walker was the only one brave enough to do something different on that final run on the Green Dragon, and it certainly paid for him. He came back closer to Ericsson. Ericsson jibed on him, he jibed away. They both split, took different sides of the course, and it paid out for Green Dragon. So that's really the first time we've seen some courageous kind of calls, some splitting tacks and putting yourselves in putting the extra tack or jibe in to get yourselves a different position on the racecourse has paid for someone. So far, otherwise, it's really just been expensive to try to tack away from the minimum tack or jibe option. And we have Puma just coming down to the finish as well now in 6th place. So That just leaves two boats out on the course, the Russians and Delta Lloyd. I can see both those spinnakers.
Well, a little bit of housekeeping here, Mark. The unofficial Deltas at the finishing line, while Telefonica Blue, the race winner. Telefonica Black, 2 minutes and 2 seconds behind them. Green Dragon, 3 minutes and 9 seconds back from Telefonica Blue. 4:14 for Ericsson 4 and 5:05 for Ericsson 3. And 5:53 now for Puma as they just go across the finishing line now. If you're following the race on the tracking through the website, you're going to need to exit this race viewer and open a new one for the second race. And of course, you'll be able to follow it on volvooceanrace.tv and .org with the audio commentary right here, guys. Two boats still on the course, Team Russia and Delta Lloyd.
Absolutely, Team Russia just making their way to the finish line now. Interesting to find out what they do, because of course everyone has to stay out for both runs. As far as I know, you can't go in and make repairs. Is that right, Knut?
That's correct. And an interesting observation is that the Russians are certainly closer to the pack now in speed than they were in the first round. So I'm sure Andreas and the guys on Team Russia regret they hoisted that cost zero kind of sail on the first run, because they're certainly more competitive now with a proper spinnaker up.
It's interesting. Mark is shaking his head, is nodding his head very vigorously. I think he was about to say exactly the same thing. Yeah, they did look much more comfortable. I'm afraid Delta Lloyd is still some way behind. As we mentioned, they were lapped effectively by Telefonica Blue in their victory parade. Telefonica Black just coming behind us now after a most satisfactory second place for them. Pedro Campos at the helm today. Our Spanish contingent of commentators all applauding the Spaniards as they go past. We've got Amanda Blackley, Maria Bertrand and Elena, who are all providing commentary out on the water here, as we are as well as on the website. And in fact, time now be right. James Boyd, are you around just for a very quick word and your very quick impressions of that first race?
Well, it was good actually. I was expecting a lot less wind today, and it's sort of come up quite nicely to around about sort of 7-8 knots. And I think Bauer Becking and the crew on Telefonica Blue will be very happy, because I was out sailing with them on Thursday in the sort of practice race for today's import race, and they came a rather sort of disappointing fifth. I know that Bauer and the team were not at all happy about that, particularly as Telefonica Black won, but they've obviously very much redeemed themselves today. And they really showed that boat's got a lot of pace. In fact, Telefonica 1 and 2, I think very satisfactory result for the home team.
Yes, indeed, a 1-2 in front of their home fans for Telefonica Blue and for Telefonica Black. James Boyd, the editor of the Daily Sail there, who is our occasional commentator when he can be torn away from his laptop, which isn't often. Mark Chisnell, Knut Frostadt, Peter Rush and I will probably be taking something of a break in a moment, and there'll be some music or something, but Mark's got his final thoughts before we go, as I'm sure Knut and Peter have. Let's start with you, Mark.
Yes, just looking at the course, we have a pretty much a good configuration. There's no real reason for this second race to be delayed. We're just waiting for Delta Lloyd to come back, and I think the plan is to start again about 15 minutes after that. So we should be going again pretty soon.
Well, the man who'd know is Knut Frostadt. Knut, what's the latest from the committee boat?
Well, obviously you will see that all the teams are packing the spinnakers as fast as they can. Some of them have finished it already because they know it's not much time, and we won't give Delta Lloyd much time to prepare, because obviously now we're waiting for them, and we want to get the second race going as soon as possible.
So Delta Lloyd will be getting through and starting again?
Well, they will getting a tough ride, because they will get much less time than everybody else in preparing for the next race, and that's unfortunately the disadvantage of finishing last.
but it's absolutely right to take advantage of the conditions that we do have. As Joe said, there's probably between 8 and 10 knots. Excellent to make sure that we get a decent spectator event out here on the water. Now, Peter, this is the first one we've done with 2 races. We only had 1 import race per time in the last event. What would you like us to do? Would you like us to keep talking? Would you like us to shut up? Do you want to take over for a bit? Let's get some instructions from the studio with Peter Rush.
Well, thanks, Guy. I think we will take a short break. What we've had from the race committee is that we can be expecting a race start shortly before the top of the hour, which means we'll come on, obviously, before that warning signal. Maybe Knut can take a second or two and, while we're still on air, check with the race committee, and we'll come back to him in a minute. We've just seen Delta Lloyd. They've just gone through the gate. They're on their way down towards the finishing line. Probably another 5 minutes or so for them. And after that, I'm sure we're going to have about a 10 or 20-minute gap before we get underway with the warning signal for the next race. We're on, if you're watching us on VolvoOceanRace.tv, we're on board with Delta Lloyd right now, and you can see as they head downwind, these guys, they haven't given up working. Every moment they spend on this boat right now is valuable time for them. Mark, what's it like when you're trying to get a campaign together so hastily? How can you use a race like this even when you're several minutes behind the next closest boat?
Well, as far as possible, Peter, I've tried to avoid campaigns that are got together quite as hastily as this one. But, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Every second they get on the boat, this is only, I think, their second day out sailing, so they're still learning huge lessons. There's not too many guys on that boat with Volvo 70 experience, so every moment they spend out here trying to figure out the angles and the speeds downwind, which is the sail selection. It's reasonably obvious today. You want the big runner-up, but they're working out now what angle to sail with that downwind, what kind of target speeds they should be going at. It's all new for these guys, and they've got a huge learning curve still to go, still to climb.
Well, Guy, it's Knut here. I'm just with the committee boat, and the plan we have is to start the next race 20 minutes after Delta Lloyd finish. And I would say they're not too far away from the finish, about 5 minutes. So that's a sequence you can plan for.
Well, working quickly off my watch here, that means that Delta Lloyd will be finishing at about 2:30 local time, and we'll be starting the next race at around 2:50 local time. So we've got a nice 25 minutes to fill. We're certainly not going to finish this commentary yet, because we commentate until all the boats are in, and of course we've got the TV cameras aboard Delta Lloyd. Interestingly, Delta Lloyd last in managed to make their cameras work. Not quite sure what happened to the Telefonica cameras when they were actually winning the race. Any news on that, Peter?
Yeah, I think what we'll do, Guy, is when Delta Lloyd finishes, we'll sign off for about 10 minutes. We'll give them their couple more minutes to go. Just doing a little wrap-up on the deltas that we've had so far, of course, in this race. Telefonica Blue just about running away with it, a 2-minute and 2-second win over their stablemates, Telefonica Black. It was 3 minutes and 9 seconds behind was Ian Walker and the Green Dragons, and then Torben Grail on Ericsson 4 minutes and 14 seconds back. They're in 4th place. Ericsson 3, that's the 5th place finisher, 5 minutes and 5 seconds behind. Then it's Puma Ocean Racing, 5:53, and Team Russia, 7 minutes and 33 seconds behind the race winner as Delta Lloyd makes their final approach. They're about 500 meters from the finishing line, I guess, now. We'll stay with it until they cross. We're going to go away for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and set up race 2.
Pretty much from the 10-minute gun. Sorry, Knut.
Yeah, just to correct a little bit, what we are doing 20 minutes after Delta Lloyd finish is to start the start sequence.
Okay,
so the 10-minute gun will come 20 minutes after Delta Lloyd's finish, which means we will have a new start probably exactly at 3 o'clock or close to.
Thank you, Knut. Well, Delta Lloyd, we should just again stress that they only had their final team announced yesterday afternoon. Less than 24 hours ago did they know who the guys would actually be on board today and for the offshore race. So no surprise at all, perhaps, that they're a little off the pace. It's also traditional. We have to remember that Delta Lloyd was ABN AMRO 1, and in the import race in San Cencio last time out, they were stone last then as well. It's what happened afterwards that was fairly interesting. So if Delta Lloyd can do half as well as ABN AMRO 1 did after last place in a Spanish import race, they could well be the one to stick your hard-earned cash on if you can get down the bookies in time. Mark?
Yeah, just watching Delta Lloyd's final jibe there was an outside jibe, which in these conditions we saw some of the other boats earlier on doing inside jibes, pulling the sail inside the bowsprit. They're now on port. They're just approaching the finish, and in about 20 seconds time, Pete, I think I'm going to hand over to you for the sign-off.
All right.
Certainly are.
Go ahead, Guy.
Sorry, Peter. No, I'm back to you in the studio, as they say in television land.
The studio. Well, as Delta Lloyd comes across the finishing line, just a moment or two, we'll sign off and come back at 15 minutes to the top of the hour at 1:45. We'll come back, and that should give us a little bit of time to set up race 2 of the import race day here, the opening races of the Volvo Ocean Race. And, Guy, I think you've got Delta Lloyd crossing just about now.
We have. Delta Lloyd have finally finished, and well done to them. Just taking part was a huge bonus as far as they were concerned. It means they pick up at least some points, almost certainly half a point. 9 minutes and 25 seconds behind the winner of this first race. Let's just give you the quick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It was Telefonica Blue who won the race from Telefonica Black. Green Dragon were third. In fourth place it was Ericsson 4 with Torben Grail ahead of Ericsson 3 in fifth place, just to make life confusing. Puma finished in sixth, Team Russia 7th, and Delta Lloyd 8th.